Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast. I'm Ivanka Magic.
And my name is Michael Forrest. How's it going, Ivanka? How was your week?
My week has actually been very good. I have not been contracting, so that's been quite nice. So I've worked on projects I like.
Ooh.
Solely, with no public service element.
Or money. Did you get money?
No, I've got some money.
That's good. Better than I do most of the time when I'm doing something I want to do.
I've got a bit of money. Not loads, but enough. And I've listened to some podcasts.
Any highlights?
I enjoyed... I've learnt something from Ted Danson. He was on that Mark Maron podcast, the WTF one that you recommended, which I now listen to periodically. And he taught me that you can go, "Hey Siri, wake me up in half an hour."
Yeah.
So that's what I learned. So now I do, "Hey Siri, wake me up at 6 a.m. That's how I set my alarm.
Nice.
So I learnt that. And I listened to Jessica Foster Q talking to the Irish comedian Aisling B. I hope you pronounce it Aisling.
Yeah, she was just on Adam Buxton's podcast
Yeah,
as
she
well.
was. But I didn't listen to her on that because I'd had an overdose. I started listening to it. I was like, I'm sorry, I can't. But they were talking about food because Jessica Foster Q's got this podcast called Hoovering, which is about food. And they were talking about food and they were talking about the environment. And I found myself agreeing with them. And they had a slightly different take on the food versus not food, which is nutritious food versus... not nutritious food.
Fun food.
So if you eat not nutritious food, you're still hungry.
Yeah.
So you need some nutrition.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed listening to them. But I listened to Jessica Foster Q on Guilty Feminist, telling a story about how she basically didn't notice she was being mugged. And I was laughing so hard and crying with tears on the train that I don't think anyone would have mugged me afterwards because they'd have probably had me down as a loony.
Well, she did say the act crazy thing. That is the best way to sort of get people to rethink doing things to you.
But that made me laugh. So yes, those are my podcasting highlights of the week.
And how was your skiing trip?
It was brilliant. I'm very, very happy with my ski trip choice. I am now a ski goddess, officially.
And what changed? What was the development that allowed you to say that?
The development was being taught, so I may have explained to you, and I don't know if it's recorded anywhere for posterity, but it is a ski holiday purely for grown-up women who would like to improve their skiing. The presumption being that nervousness probably stops a lot of the ski skills developing, because standing on a steep slidey thing with slidey things on your feet, that induces nervousness in people. So she was a very, very good teacher who had lots of tricks up her sleeve, and being on holiday with 4 other women that I didn't know was surprisingly brilliant. Maybe not surprisingly. I think there's a lot more press around that women don't get on than there is the reality. And there's this misconception that if you put, 5 women in a room together, they're going to end up bickering or something. But I, in my experience, that's not strictly true. So I had a wonderful time with these women that I met. I learned some things, had some discussions, and I relaxed enormously about skiing. Because I realised that the things that she was telling me actually work.
How did what did you change? Was it beliefs or was it just breathing?
No, skill.
Just skill.
It's like, look, if you apply pressure on this foot, regardless of how steep, you actually feel quite safe. Oh, yeah. It's a bit like that. skigoddess.co.uk. That's my little plug. Thanks, Katie.
That's the person. Oh, so Ski Goddess is a brand name.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So that wasn't immediately clear to me.
Oh, was it not?
Hope she's paying us some money.
No, but I'm hoping for a discount next year.
Oh, right. So you get paid.
That's my angle.
I'll take half of that discount. Thank you very much.
So that was excellent. I've got one more story.
Go on, go and
Well, it's not really a story, it's a
me.
conclusion.
A conclusion.
Well, I was thinking about the whole pain, childbirth being the example, the pain example, the universal example of pain. Here's this thing that is the most painful thing, and when we talk about pain, we must always relate it to childbirth.
Apparently, it's true.
Apparently, that's what people say. But I think that pain is one of the least defining features of childbirth. Childbirth's not about pain. So I'm not sure how I feel about the fact that this thing gets sort of the fact whether it hurts or not or how much it hurts is irrelevant almost, because you're birthing a person and it's more about that than. I did speak to one other. I've done some user research. I've spoken to one other woman about my theory. She's had 2 babies. I've only had 1, so we're a big sample size. It's a very scientific conclusion. But I think that in a way, and what made me think of this is because the ski goddess instructor is 20 weeks pregnant, and somebody had somebody had been winding her up about how much it was going to hurt. And I was like, that's just not helpful, nor is it true. So I think this is another smash the patriarchy thing.
Well,
and smashed.
I'm gonna and obviously, like we've talked about how pain doesn't really have pain. It doesn't exist without context, and if the context is you're having a child, that's gonna affect your perception. You're gonna be like, oh yeah, I mean, this is definitely gonna be worth it. Like this is definitely a thing that we do, and it's fine. And I'm just gonna say, when I said it.
I wasn't picking on you.
When I said it, I was repeating something that someone in a position of authority had said to me, and I did sort of say, well, that seems to be the thing, and I wasn't just buying into it, but okay, fine, enough of the childbirth pain reference.
Maybe we should, as well as the say no to straws and the get a keep cup campaign, we should also have start saying it hurts even more than passing a kidney stone, for example. Maybe that should be the new de facto example.
Well, there isn't anything. So there. I've had the worst one.
But there you go. So we need a new example. That's what
I went
needs
up to
to
12.
enter the vernacular.
Well, yeah, or just
doctors
need to. We just need to stop taking doctors too seriously as well. As in the spirit of Larry David and other comedians who. Other people, these doctors are getting a bloody ride. No, it's not true. They do some important things that I would not want to do. I was thinking, would I ever be a doctor? No, it's gross. It's so gross.
I looked into it, but not till later. I think that my father had an aversion to things like blood and things like that. So he was not. He was like, who'd want to be a doctor? So I think he fed that into my brain a bit. So when I was about 29, 30, I seriously looked into what would be involved with me becoming a doctor at that age.
Wow, that would be a career.
It's very tiring.
Switch.
I thought. It's
A friend of my sister's got run over by a lorry. Over her legs. Her legs got run over.
Fucking hell.
And they had to. I mean, I won't go into details, but they actually. They had to do loads of stuff. Paramedics. She was in hospital for a while, but she was walking again, and she climbed a mountain to sort of celebrate. And then she went into medicine after that, around 30s. Just, I think she was probably so, okay, I owe so much to this. Yeah. I should do this. But imagine that, getting your legs squashed by an articulated something or other, and then, walking away.
And then getting fixed.
Yeah.
It's clever what they can do, these doctor people.
Innit?
This so I was thinking about this morning when I was walking to nursery, looking at shapes. David Siegel tweeted at me and went, "Oh, whose sister is it that was studying medical policy or healthcare policy she was studying?" But one of the things it reminded me of was I was part of some research project quite a few years ago that was about helping people choose their doctor, because now that's a big thing because we're customers of the National Health Service and therefore we should have choices. But then they have to give statistics and measures to help you choose. And one of the things that becomes quite tricky is the fact that, for example, one of the things to look at if you're choosing your heart surgeon is mortality rates or recovery rates or things like this. But what that doesn't take into account is that some surgeons who might be highly experienced or maybe more willing to take on a riskier patient, and that patient may be very willing to take the risk, but they will then, by out of just because that's the way it is, have a higher mortality rate than somebody who plays it safe but isn't very good, for example.
I had this with a dentist. I was like, if this was a programmer, I would not hire him, because he just doesn't want to take responsibility for anything. He just doesn't want to sort of like own what he's doing. He won't like commit to anything. I'm like, look, I stop trying to make absolutely every decision my problem and like be a professional about this. Yeah. So I think that comes into my decision process. But you know, obviously you sort of want to know they're not just killing every single person they work on. That would be kind of cool as well.
But yes, I agree. So I have that sort of like, you're the expert, you tell me, and then I'll just be less stressed about it.
Shall I go into my stories?
Yeah, going to store. So, Michael, now you may tell me about your week.
We at the weekend we got very excited about how clever we were, Sharon and I, when we were making some popcorn. Because the other week we bought these crisps, and like they were kind of low quality crisps, and all the kind of flavouring seasoning had fallen into the sort of bottom of the packet. So I kind of saved it all, and then we put it on popcorn next time we did popcorn, and it was bloody amazing. And we were thinking, but we couldn't remember what kind of crisps they were. So we thought, well, maybe we can replicate this. We like buy a load of Wotsits and stuff, and we'll blend them, and then we'll make the popcorn, and we'll put the sort of blended powder on. We thought, we're so clever. I'm so excited for this. And then we did it, and it just didn't work. It just wasn't good. It was just all went into the bottom, and even like spraying a bit of oil on it just didn't stick, and it was just low. I was so disappointed. I thought, this is the future. We can have any flavour of popcorn. So we just need to find a source for sort of industrial seasoning in sort of reasonable quantities to start sprinkling on the popcorn.
I've done Marmite experiments with popcorn.
Oh gosh, that sounds dangerous.
Do you not like Marmite?
No, I like Marmite, but I don't know how you'd get it to kind of evenly distribute. You just get like... Yeah.
No, I think we Googled it, of course, and it involved melting butter and putting Marmite in the butter or in the oil or something.
Yeah,
and then pouring
like
it over.
as soon as you got to do all this butter melt, I don't like the. Yeah, I mean it's probably delicious, but I'm trying to sort of avoid pouring butter all over it as well.
What's your oil of choice for making your popcorn?
Well, you want a high smoke point.
Yeah.
But actually, at the moment, I'm just using Crisp and Dry because of its availability.
Crisp and Dry is rapeseed oil, is it not?
Oh, is it? I didn't even check.
Yeah, I believe so.
But that's actually not the best one. Rice bran oil is the one that we kind of go for if we're trying to get the right thing.
Rice bran oil. That sounds like a specialist shop visit.
Yeah, usually. It's not quite. Okay. It's not on the small Tesco's. It's got a very high. But I don't bother with olive oil. Don't be silly. You know, it's a waste of olive oil.
Popcorn's the only snack we're allowed to eat on the sofa.
What?
Embraced.
What are you
by the family.
What? You're only allowed to eat one snack on the sofa? Right, the child.
It's easier to have a no snacks on the sofa policy except popcorn. That can be adhered to far more easily than, yes, popcorn plus these kind of crisps. Best to say, if you're eating or drinking, you have to sit at the table.
Okay, all right.
Except if
wet
it's popcorn.
Snacks. I mean, no jam sandwiches. That's for damn sure.
No.
On my sofa, but I don't know. Like, I suppose the child doesn't want Bombay mix. Something I wanted to pick you up on was your trophy thing. Like your thing of not using a plastics trophy for some...
Oh, yeah, go on.
Because I'm like, if I win an award, I want that bloody thing to last forever. Why are you optimising for something that's throwaway by not using plastic?
I don't know. It's too late now. I'll consider this next year.
I thought, why you give me something that's going to biodegrade?
Yes,
This is my
you
glory.
ask a very valid question, Michael.
This trophy we're giving you will be dissolved within 6 months.
Come on, it's wood.
Cool.
It lasts ages.
Yeah, wood. I mean, wood is not too. Is pretty. That'll fossilise.
Will it? Not live forever.
I was just saying it, hoping for a little laugh.
But
didn't happen. Fuck it and fuck everything.
Dear.
No, and I haven't really got any. I'm just feeling myself again this week. And I've even got some vitamin D supplements to come as well. Hopefully, it'll give me a bit of a boost on top of that.
I thought the whole supplement industry was a load of shit.
It is. Well, I mean, vitamin D, you can pretty much. I don't like the idea of having to take any supplement, but vitamin D is pretty well, There's the snake oil chart. We've got that. I'm pretty sure that's somewhere good on the snake oil chart infographic.
Okay.
Vitamin D's like at the promising level, but
Are you
not
checking
actually
now?
that high. Yeah.
Well, NHS recommend that you give it to your small child and take it in pregnancy.
It actually appears twice for some reason.
Once
vitamin
in bullshit
D,
and once in good.
Vitamin D for bone health is low. Vitamin D for general health is good. So yeah, there you go.
Well, I did have one more story about my small child on the subject of feminism. I've got loads of stories actually, but I just think I should ration them.
Yeah, fine.
But it wasn't really on the subject of feminism, more on the subject of having a small child. She very hilariously was walking around the house yesterday with a Bob the Builder hat, a foam hammer, banging on walls going, and the chimney's going to go here, and the balcony's going to go here. Really quite hilarious.
But yeah, although if you expose her to those like home improvement shows, she's gonna just have a hole inside that can never be, she'll have a sort of deadness inside that can never be fulfilled.
It's not the TV, Michael. It's the reality of being a small child with a house that's being done up.
Oh, right. Okay, sorry. I thought she was like referencing those shows. No, that's good then.
No.
I like that.
No, it's a real life example.
Good. That's awesome.
But now she knows it made me laugh because I really struggled to not laugh when she was telling me all this. Now she's picking it up as a funny thing to do and to tell Mummy, come and look at my building.
Look, I'm doing it again.
Yeah, I'm funny. Look. I'm like, well, it was funny once. My segues into education.
What are we fucking talking about this week?
Talking about education.
Right.
I'm slightly concerned. So, speaking as a mother and a parent, I have some reservations about the current education system and how well that will prepare my child for a life where robots can do more.
It does scare me, the idea of having a child, like that education thing, that school thing is like, I don't know there's anything satisfactory.
No.
But so, yeah, what?
So even as somebody, I had, I think, what can only be termed as a pretty traditional education. I was quite fortunate in many ways that I had this Yugoslav element because they take it very, very seriously and we learnt lots of things and read lots of things and my maths was terribly good at one point. And then I did the whole degree thing and the master's thing. So I've got lots of and the MSc and BEng and these kind of like none of this arty-farty bullshit that your Eastern European father's not going to sign off on. But I have looked into Steiner schools for my child.
Which one's that?
That's the child does whatever they like kind of education. It's very free-form as far as I can establish and kind of look down. You have to drink the Kool-Aid. I've been reliably informed by another parent whose child does do Steiner, and she's a mathematician. So I have this terrible thing where my big bias probably is to do with sciences and maths. People that are good at maths must be cleverer than people who I don't know if it's that strict, but like I'm respectful of people with a maths, science, physics degree type thing.
Well, that was my I picked physics to study at university because I just thought that's something I need. I feel there's a lot of things that I care about that it feels like physics is the baseline for it, and I'm
Yeah.
never going to do that for fun. I'm never going to do that off my own
No.
back. I just need I need a structure. I need someone forcing me to do it. Everything else I'm interested in has like a pull, has a thing that
Mm.
makes me enjoy doing it. So like even programming, music, sort of artistic things, like
Yeah.
even reading. Those are things that kind of are a bit more intrinsic with the pleasure, but you have to work a lot harder to get that kind of thing out of the sciences
Yeah,
sometimes.
the physics degree thing. I have to say that in my experience of working with people with physics degrees, most of whom that have not been working with because they are a physicist.
Mm.
I've been working with them because they are a programmer or some sort of consultant, blah, blah, blah. It does seem to lend itself well to just being clever and creative.
I mean, I found it too hard. I mean, it was very fucking difficult. Like,
Wow.
especially like, so I feel like at school, because I sort of coasted through it, I never really got given the tools to actually kind of. I
Yeah,
didn't know
yeah,
how to learn. So then when I was dropped into this, I just didn't have the tools or the habits or the experience to know how to, address it when it was actually difficult. And I actually had to sit down and kind of try and
yeah.
figure it out.
I think that's quite an interesting thing because at the moment there's lots of change. You know how you're supposed to, before you were supposed to tell your children how clever they are. Now you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to reward them for effort and trying and
Right.
go. And there's an interest. I listened to a funny podcast, another podcast that referenced this woman that I've heard speak to. She's a very sort of dry sounding American woman. So it's quite amusing. And you're like, do you ever cuddle? Are you allowed to cuddle your children? But there's this kind of, instead of going, well done, you're so clever, you're supposed to go, oh my God, that must have been really hard. Well done for trying or keeping. So it's that kind of, you're
Okay.
supposed to reinforce because there's more and more argument to say that IQ isn't a thing and that
Yeah.
if you work hard, then anybody can do anything, which, I'm paraphrasing
I
slightly,
mean,
but it's a bit more about effort and learning. So, but yeah, I think there is a bit of a thing where, because I think I wasn't dissimilar to you. If I listened in school to my teachers, I found that, especially with my good teachers, I found I didn't have to do a great deal of study outside of class. This was
yeah.
in Yugoslavia when I could easily knock out a high percentage on a test just from listening.
Yeah. This
So
was something that I was kind of like, I was kind of branded a swot at school when I was young, and like, there was some bullying. There's a lot of that kind of came in. And from my perspective, what I was doing was just the work that I'd been given. I was just
yeah,
doing
yeah,
it. I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not reading extra things. I'm not going out of my way to do it. I'm
mm,
just like, they said you had to do this, so I did it. Like,
yeah, yeah.
why does that single me out? But yeah, like if you're just paying attention, then
Yeah, I mean that's all. That's my. And I did also have, and I think this is so. Going back to Steiner, I know somebody who went to Steiner who has got a PhD in lasers or nanotechnology from Cambridge. So he's
excellent.
and a degree in
Wow.
physics from Imperial. So even though it has this hippie kind of away with the fairies thing about it. I must be able to. I must learn to describe it more usefully. But I think the basis is around play, and I don't see why my 5-year-old will need to learn how to sit still and listen. I don't see how that's useful.
Yeah,
When she's 5, there's time for that later.
we're training people to want to have lots of meetings, I suppose, aren't we?
Yeah,
With that sort of attitude,
and
it's
not
just a
speak
waste.
up.
Everyone. Well, I mean, even that, yeah.
And
Just that's a lot of wasted time, isn't it?
this may feel like a tenuous link, and I hope people can bear with me on my tangent because I love a tangent. On the subject of a lot of this news that's constantly coming up, and the Me Too hashtag, and all these sorts of things, a lot of it, not a lot of it. I had an interesting phone call in the week where a woman I used to work with phoned to tell me that she'd finally kind of complained about somebody who'd behaved very inappropriately at work, and it was years later. And I just thought, well, I don't know why you didn't think you were allowed to do that before. Why do you feel that, what has happened? And I don't mean this as a personal accusation. It's much what in the way you have been brought up, the way you've been educated, has led you to believe that you can't go, fuck you, no, you can't say that to me, or you can't do that to me. And because I think that's one of the things with the emphasis on obedience. Yes, I need my child to be obedient so that she can exist in society, but she also needs to know when she doesn't have to be obedient or comply with people's instructions. I think there's and I think there's something interesting about how far your education takes you in teaching you the sort of like having respect for authority, and that there's an order which mustn't be challenged and all that kind of shit, because that is a part of school, and you do need to learn when to go no. Oh, like, you hear about these kids, little boys going to school in skirts on a hot summer's day because they've not been allowed to wear shorts, but girls can wear short skirts. That's the kind of shit I want to see kids doing. Go, no, that is a bullshit rule. I don't agree, and here's how I'm going to protest it.
Although I still don't agree with shorts at any time. But well, I suppose I did when it is New York, when it's 40 degrees. That's when I last wore shorts, and that was necessary.
I like a good short, me. But so
also this morning, but that's exercise, so it's different.
See, so you got to be careful about making sweeping statements.
Pro
and anti-short statements. I don't know, but then I sort of think I don't know where I sit on the whole. So I did do maths, and I did have to do lots of practice, because practice makes you better and better at maths, and then you understand it. Once you've got your algebra nailed, you can do loads more other things. Once you've got the basics sorted and you don't have to look them up and think about them. Do I need that? How useful is it? Is it just useful as a brain exercise? I don't know.
That was the revelation of programming for me, because you do all this. I was doing you did sort of like trigonometry and things at school, and you're like, why? And then suddenly I was trying to figure out how to program some sort of 3D graphics or something, and I realized, oh, you need trigonometry for this. It's like, oh, this. I love it when something really kind of academic and useless seeming actually turns out to have a really kind of useful purpose, and I can. Because it's like it's a lot of effort to get the hang of it, and then it's like, well, I'll never need that again. But then if you find a reason that it's useful, it's really fun.
Well, I mean, it's even simple things in like the volume. How big is this wall? I need to buy some paint. How big is this room? I need to buy. Like just being able to not have to look up how to work out the volume of a space in broad terms. You know what I mean? There's people that, so I don't know, like your basic times tables, or that saying that I'm not as, my mental arithmetic is, I just can do, like, I'm a bit of a rounder up. I've much preferred maths that involved letters and not numbers.
Yeah, like maths, numbers isn't. Yeah, I mean, I suppose there is all that. I never really got into all that sort of I never did any of that kind of number theory stuff that I saw the maths people doing. It was all, it's kind of practical maths for physics. But I love that, like, imaginary numbers, that a completely academic mad thing just turn out to be a factor in some quite important physics equations that actually describe the world and help you put satellites in the sky and things. I've had moments where I've regretted not kind of following what I enjoyed a bit more, or following a charismatic teacher a bit more, because I've always had this, I think from the education system, this idea of this rigid, this is a worthwhile thing, and this is a frivolous thing, and you must sort of equally divide your time between X, Y, and Z, and which just doesn't take into account that maybe your history teacher happened to be really funny, which mine was. But that, to me, would have been a completely invalid reason to pursue history. But actually, like, what could be a better reason to do something than that you happen to have a really good teacher of that subject? And, who we to but I suppose is it about kind of having more options in future? But sometimes I kind of regret, I could have studied music. I could have like just gone all out on that, and would I? But maybe I would have regretted that a lot more. But I don't know, because the stuff I make my money from, I wasn't taught academically at any point. Well, I
No.
was, but they taught it like about 20 years behind the level that I was sort of interested in learning. So yeah, sometimes I kind of like regret going that really kind of dry, because I struggled and I barely got my degree, like, and it was mixed in with some sort of other things, but maybe I should have done something I actually enjoyed. Like, even like engineering rather than physics, I think I would have enjoyed a lot more, because I could have made a thing.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a bridge, here's a thing. I'm actually kind of like
Yeah.
solving a real problem. Yeah.
I think in retrospect, there is no way I could have finished my degree. I think my father, who did coerce me, however gently and pleasantly, to doing, because I wanted to do maths and philosophy, and he was like, "Don't be ridiculous, maths and philosophy. What are you going to do with that?" I was like, "I could do anything if I did maths and philosophy." Anyway, but so I did engineering, and I think he was quite lucky, as was I, that I actually enjoyed it. So therefore, working on it was not. Because it's hard work. It's a 9 to 5 degree, at least, in terms of, but I don't think I'm in any way especially talented or anything. The maths the fact that I'd got some good maths drills saved me. Because after a while, electronics is just, it's quantum physics. It's like, huh? One of our lecturers, he'd stand at the front. I did like him a lot, Dennis Ryder. He really did put a lot of effort into trying to make it as engaging as possible on the subject of good lecturers. And he'd stand at the front, and you're like, we've had that conversation about gravity and having conversations at the same level, like where his gravity started and where ours was, like on planes apart. It's like, so hang on a minute, wait, can we go back here? So yes, I found it was hard. But I did learn at university, because what I lacked, having come through the Yugoslav education system, you don't do exams, you're continually assessed. So you either have an oral examination where the teacher literally walks in the classroom and goes, "You, blackboard, now answer this question," or you've got written tests, and the written tests, they're coming, but they'll only ever examine a limited amount of... It is about knowledge, I think, and not about... But I never learned how to do exams. So my A-levels, there was a miracle I got any, frankly, because I had no exam technique at all.
We should like reference that industrialized education talk. I'm sure everyone in the world has bloody seen this thing by now, but that is it. Ken Robinson's "Do Schools Kill Creativity" talk. That's something that we're probably referencing. And when we talk about sort of like industrialized education, the idea that, the fact that schools have been designed around, like, from Victorian times, of factories and obedience and order and structure and repetition, which is just not really appropriate to the modern world. So that's why all these alternatives are perfectly legitimate and very sort of necessary.
Well, in Brighton, I've been looking at Forest School as another alternative, where school happens outside.
What?
There's no classroom. What's wrong with that for a little? And
This might be a bit cold.
No such thing as bad weather, just bad gear, Michael. Just bad gear. It's true.
How are you going to hold a pencil in a big thick
I don't
glove?
think there's much writing involved in Forest School.
How are you going to learn anything without a
Well,
pencil?
you don't have to when you're 5. You don't need to know how to write when you're 5. She keeps coming up to me with books going, "Mummy, I can't read this." Yes, you're 3. It's okay. That's my job. I can read it.
I'm going to be suing this Forest School for brand issues. One of the most demoralising things that happened to me in like higher education was when I was ready, and I was kind of putting all the effort in, and it was coming up to a quantum mechanics module. And that was one of the things that I'd seen in the sort of brochure when I was making a decision of which university to go to. I thought, that sounds important and interesting. And it finally comes to this, and for the first time, I actually managed to get to the library in time to get this book. This was, there was only books for this stuff, and you could never get it out of the library. It was always gone. So I managed to get the book, and I read through it, and as much as I could, I got as far as I could until it was just really like, I don't know what, I don't understand anymore.
Say what?
Eigenvalues, just some weird stuff. And I thought, hey, I've still got the lecture. I've still got the course. And then when I went into that classroom and we had it, the lecturer, when he got to that bit of the book, just sort of like glossed over it because he didn't understand it. And I just thought, and I wasn't quite brave enough to stick my hand up and kind of call him out on it, which I kind of wish I had. But at the same, it was just, for me, was this kind of crystallization of the limits of an industrialized, like, there's got to be equal numbers of X, Y, Z. And it doesn't matter if the guy teaching it is remotely interested in it or not. We have to have this on the curriculum.
Yeah.
And then thinking, actually, there's probably not that many people alive that understand this in a meaningful way. Like, how many people get quantum mechanics in the world?
I don't know.
It can't be that many. Like, so what's the point of just don't fob me off with this, you know? And that sort of plays into a bit of, I don't know. I talked to Sharon last night about this because she obviously works in sort of higher education, and sort of see what she thought. And she's deals with a lot of sort of student complaints. Students are now customers because everyone's got to pay for their education. And with that, there seems to be this expectation that if you buy this degree, you will pass it.
Yep, I've heard this.
And that's really messed up. So they spend a lot of time kind of dealing with students that are complaining that they didn't get as good a mark as they thought they should. Rather than, whereas for us, it's like, no, you get, the mark is the mark.
Yeah.
You can't fight for a better mark.
Well, you know, I do this bit of teaching at the university on a Tuesday morning, and I've had. Did I tell you? One of the students said to me, along these lines, she said something like, you know, you're our best teacher, and it's not because the others are shit. High praise. But she, because, you know, they're complaining about people, but then on this week when we were doing some, because I'm teaching them on a practical thing, we're just doing a project, so I'm not sitting there teaching them the theory of anything really. I'm taking them through steps in a project. And one of them asked me a question, and if she should do so, I was like, it's your degree. If you don't want to do the work. I said, as my late father said to me, it's up to you. I can, I've laid out the project. You don't want to show up. I'm not going to put, I've tried to make it as interesting as possible and tried to put some, money. But, it's up to you how much effort you put in.
It's baffling that people still wouldn't, I mean, if you're paying for it, if you're going to be in debt for the next 2 decades or whatever, surely that should be a motivator to work really hard on it. But actually, it doesn't seem to be. I don't think it is.
Well, they're still 19. I mean, we all go through, and I do think a lot of education, your attitude to it will go back to how your parents taught you about it, and or if you've got an inspiring teacher or somebody like that. I've been lucky. I've had some excellent teachers. I've had some, not so good ones. But my parents were actively involved in conversation, like history. You made me think of my father, because he was massively into history, so he'd quite happily discuss it with you. So it wasn't this dry thing where on this date such and such happened. He was massively into the why and what steps led up to that and what were the consequences of that, and so you could have a conversation with him about it, and he made it interesting. I had a basic rule. The basic rule in my house was you can pretty much do whatever you like as long as your grades don't drop below sort of a C/B average. But then I had freedom. That was like my ticket to freedom was doing my homework. So, you can go out. Of course, you can go out to a gig. Of course, you can go out on a school night, whatever, as long as your grades stay right. Though I wasn't allowed out on a school night. No.
You weren't?
No, not even. No, that was ridiculous. But then I cleverly went away to school in Mostar. So my parents weren't there to see me. But again, as long as the grades kept coming, I could demonstrate that I was doing enough work to have the grades. And it was like, but it was kind of that was my job. My job was to do well at school. Like you said, people give you things to do and you were doing it not because you were a boss, but because That's the deal.
And it's done. Done. Yeah, that's the deal.
Somebody's asked you to do something. You're at school. That's your current job.
Yeah, something that's like a much more modern skill is, I kind of got into my programming profession partly. I just realised, you don't have to know anything. You just have to know how to look it up. You just have to know how to learn it. Like, that's the only thing you have to do. Like, just, okay, yeah, I can do this. And and that's 90% of my existence now. It's like, oh, how do you do this? All things I've never done before. Well, in this particular way, like, there's obviously principles that you kind of learn, and that can be part of academia. But yeah, sort of like these sort of specific things that you would be asked in a test, which you couldn't Google anything. Which I think there's less of that now, isn't there? This sort of completely sort of you've just got to do everything from your brain.
Well, no, I saw this LinkedIn conversation this week where somebody's gone in to his daughter's GCSE computer science option, or maybe even A-level option, has no practical element. It's all tested in an exam. I mean,
what?
Yeah,
like,
so there's no coursework element because they're so worried about cheating. Well, what is programming if it's not practical?
Yeah, no. What? How could you possibly? Like, I can't. You need an idea. You need to try a thing out, and then you need to try and make it work. And then the passing it works.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. I think.
Well, to some extent, I mean, if it still works when you make a change to it, then that's really step level 2.
My electronic engineering degree, believe it. Did I tell you I did electronic engineering? No.
I didn't.
No, I did electronic engineering. But the programming bit was the easy bit. Genuinely, that was the bit where you could do the project. You knew you could do the project because it was logical and you could just work through the code until it compiled. Easy compared to most of the other shit. It's just like.
Programming is great because you work through it and you get lots of little rewards along the way. You get to each thing sort of incrementally work, and you get to feel clever at every step of the journey. Yeah. Apart from when if it's a bit too hard and you just get super frustrated and give up. But that's what separates the wheat from the chaff. Mangoes for breakfast every day. There's a great line in The West Wing where Rob Lowe's character says that he thinks schools should be cathedrals, and like they should be the same way that the military budget gets spent on these enormous battleships and expensive weapons and all this research. The education system should have that kind of investment in it, and you should come in and it should be fucking enormous and amazing and inspiring and expensive. Like how would we get to that vision of education? Like, obviously free. Like, anyone that's interested in learning. Why? That's the most absolute, like, charging for education is the most offensive thing that anyone's done for a long time, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Just thinking about it now, yeah, you went to war, fine, but you started charging people for education. That's fucked up. That is, how many knock-on effects do you think that's going to have? Like, having an educated,
population. Because it's in nobody's interest. That's the thing if you choose the best mathematician out of 10 people, whilst they might be brilliant, you've got a much higher chance of finding the best mathematician chosen out of 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000 people is far more likely to be the most amazing mathematician than one out of a random sample of 10. If you limit the pool that you're choosing to educate, then it's a massive gamble for society, I think.
It's like a short-term saving for a massive long-term, like, what do you call it? There's technical debt for code. What do you call it for educational debt? Just, that's, is it directly responsible for Brexit? Yes.
Yes, yeah. But that's because I think but then there's all these other interesting things going on in society at the moment, because my starting point for rethinking education, as somebody who believes that education should have an element of you just do it, and no, you do have to practice that, and yes, no, I know that bit's boring, but stick with it will become interesting later. Why I'm looking at alternative ways of educating my child is because I think the workplace, the world is going to change, and there is no point perfecting being good at something that a robot can do, or a computer, or whatever.
And how much did school tell us about what work is like? It didn't.
No, no. But
It's
should it? Should it just be about developing your brain, learning how to think critically? Go, huh?
how much of it is because it makes you good at work, and how much of it is for, I don't know, just general social reasons. I don't know.
I don't know.
But I think as a baseline, it would be good to kind of make sure that it was kind of covering that work thing, wouldn't it? At least, I just remember getting, when I was like 7 or something, really enjoying working with someone else on a project, and then getting told that that was against the rules, and that's the core of work, of existing in society, working with other people, and you're actively discouraging it. That's so messed up. I don't understand.
That's true. I think you've mentioned
individualistic education is a real weird thing, isn't it?
And it's important. I mean, I did enjoy my degree for the fact that it was very practical, and we had lots of practical projects, and I believe it did prepare me for the workplace. We had a lot of things that we had to do as groups, and then you'd have the usual, one person slacking, or the person who never shows up, or whatever, and then you have to resolve all that, and we had to do presentations and blah blah blah. So there's quite a lot of practice and deadlines and stuff that I think is important.
I don't think that was part of any of my education, really, like collaboration.
Well, I mean,
that's probably why I'm so bad at it. I'm just not good at it. Getting other people involved. I feel like I've been really kind of honed into this individual that,
I had one person that I was on a team project with who chose that moment in life to start really experimenting with acid.
Nice.
And he came to one of our group meetings talking about, because we were doing all these Fourier transforms and all these this maths that was just hard, incomprehensible really to mostly. And he's going, I took some, and then I thought about it, and he started to, I was like, just fucking do the thing that we've asked you to do. Stop talking about what your experience of Fourier transforms on acid. Thank you. But yes, when the what is it called, the luxury automated communism? What's the thing that's coming? Luxury automated communism. Yeah. That's when fully automated luxury communism is the thing where computers do everything, and therefore we just have to focus on, we get money to live, but we get everything we need, and then we just have to focus on entertaining ourselves. So I think in the worst case scenario, you get a Wall-E type thing where everyone's just do
I think that's been the most realistic but terrifying vision of the future I've seen. But that doesn't it mean that do we not still believe that artistic pursuits are then kind of the goal of all of this?
Well, creative pursuits must be.
But we need to feel useful though. It's horrible not feeling useful.
Well, Sussex did this clever thing 20 odd years, I think quite long, maybe even 30 years ago, where they made the computer science and psychology were the same department. So it was cogs, not...
that's why they had a good... I always looked at their kind of AI type courses thinking, I could do that, that'd be good.
So Maggie Bowden was... Because when I did my master's, we could go and see other lecturers, and she's one of the world's leading... I think she's an AI philosopher, so she's an expert in AI, but she's primarily a philosopher. And you go and watch her speak, and she makes you think. And I just read this week it popped up somewhere in my timeline that she said, computers, AI will never have the creative skills of the human brain. I hope I'm not paraphrasing wrongly, but she's like, AI is all very clever, but it's nowhere near ready to be a replacement for humans.
Well, it was supposed to be 20 years ago when I was reading about it, and but I don't think there's any reason to think that machines couldn't be just as creative as us. But the thing is that in order their experience has to sort of for it to make sense to us, their experience has to mirror our experience, which it won't, because they're kind of fast at different things.
Yeah.
But if you have, so I think like a prerequisite for kind of a creative AI that we can get anything out of is something with 2 arms and 2 legs and a head and that grew up, and
Yeah.
that, or it's
But not bullied at school.
yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
how do you you can't just conjure that out of but then maybe you can just scan 1 million brains and extract the experience from all of those brains. I actually got some AI working some machine learning working this week, which I was quite proud of. I've got this project in mind. Well, yeah, I got this TensorFlow working, which is Google's thing. There's this YouTube series that I'll link to of kind of showing you how to get going with it, sort of practically, and actually kind of like it's got actual readable code, which most of this ML sort of open source stuff is just horrific, like just completely opaque naming, no comments, no explanation of why anything's, because I think they don't really understand why it's working half the time. But I've got this idea of I just want to make a little mini Shazam for my own songs for when I'm playing live that can just recognize what percentage of what song I'm mixing into what other song and like use that to drive something interesting. But I was quite pleased that I got that. That's the first time that I managed to get like a little one of those style transfer examples working, where it kind of takes a famous painting and a photo of you and kind of puts you in that style. I don't know if you've seen that. It's great. Ostagram. So what about the fact that people's access to education is no longer the sole, like there's not such a bottleneck of the library and the school anymore. There's so many more ways to learn things than there ever been, and there's so many more sort of appealingly presented courses and like contact with people that I think that the sort of formal state education system is sort of like it's getting lazy because of the fact that the internet.
I really don't know. You reminded me of a thing one of my friends from A levels said about. We knew these sisters who their parents gave them loads of freedom. They could pretty much do, compared to us who had to do our homework and all that sort of boring stuff. They were quite sort of free and cooler, I think is the expression I'm looking for. But then he said of them, he's like, given them all that they've been given all this freedom, but nothing to think about.
Right.
And, if you do need to direct a person, you've mentioned having a history teacher who was really interesting and really fun and made it really engaging. And then you've mentioned like the fact that if somebody like this open source code that's not commented well and opaque and all that, it's like if you can't explain something in an engaging manner, it probably means you don't actually understand it. And so there's this kind of like the things that bringing somebody into the world of things you're interested in is actually quite satisfying, and it's kind of like, look, this is a really exciting thing, come and see. And
here's why you have to learn this boring stuff, because then you get to understand this thing, and then you get to make one of these. Like that.
It's like with these students that I've got, they're running ahead doing like the 3 steps ahead on the project. I was like, hang on a minute, I've designed this project with these steps, and you might feel like it's wasted. And then we did a thing on Tuesday where I think they kind of, it clicked why I'd asked them to do the thing. That I don't, it was like, oh, I see. I was like, I know it might feel a bit dull, but just bear with me. That's the game. This is where you get to play. You're at university now. But it's the same watching. I was talking to my mum about this yesterday with my child running around the house with this whole, we'll put a chimney here and a balcony here. It's your small child absolutely reflects the things that you're interested in, and you take the time to help them become interested in. So we've got other children in the group, there's 2 of them whose mothers are artists, and those children, my child hasn't yet drawn a face that is recognizable as something with 2 eyes and she doesn't draw. She pretends to write, so she does all these tiny squiggles. Whereas the daughters of these 2 women who are artists ages ago had started drawing things that were recognizable as some sort of a face, because I am not. That's what their mothers are spending time doing with them. I'm not. I'm spending time with my child, writing things, I don't know what I do with her. We don't do a great deal of drawing because that's not a thing that I do. So she can find letters on a keyboard, like she knows which one's the first letter. But she does the things. We do a lot of listening to music and dancing, but they reflect this thing that you're interested in. And one of the things where you said, if I'd have let myself follow the things I'm interested in, I don't know where you find those unless somebody draws you towards them. I don't know how much
you need
of them
a pool of inspiration. You can't just kind of like find it randomly.
Just randomly. And there was this really interesting article I saw in the week about the fact that some failing school, I've definitely saved the link for this one, a failing school somewhere in England has instituted a thing where the children have to do music classes five times a week, and that is the thing that has had the most impact on their improvement overall. I didn't read the science or theory as to why, but I had to do music. I played the accordion. Very uncool. But I had to practice. My parents made me practice, and I cried and I objected. But once I got good, the feeling, the first time I was able to play music for myself, just because I was in a bad mood and I wanted to play something, and I was like, oh my God, it was worth it. Even though, I was never ever going to be a talented musician, but I could certainly learn how to read some music and play the thing that I read.
That feeling of being able to know that you can like conjure up something from nowhere on
an instrument.
Just
brilliant.
Sit down. It's wonderful, and it also teaches you a lot about, I don't know. It's difficult in a sort of weird way that I feel like applies to a lot of things. But,
yeah.
Assuming the machines don't just decide to destroy us, I think my sort of vision of humanity's progress is each individual has the world's best teacher right in front of them on demand who will just educate them very well on anything, and they will kind of know the child, and this is an AI bot as we would call it now, but you would have your teacher and they would know you and understand you and know what you like and teach you things and be able to sort of spin up interactive visuals and anything that is needed, or branded with whatever toy franchise you're currently obsessed with, and just like absolute maximum engagement with this, because education, when it's good, when it's a good teacher, is just brilliant. You just really just want that. And if every single individual human had that wonderful teacher that cared about them and could kind of shape how they explain things to your individual understanding, I think that's how we would like transcend and move to a sort of higher level of society and understanding. And I would love to, that's kind of what I want from all of this. But they may just go, just can't be bothered, let's just destroy them.
I'm trying, that is such a fantastic idea. That I don't want to come in with so Michael, who was your worst teacher? Like that, I feel like this argument, this conversation about education is missing balance, but I'm not sure I care, because I do think it's important if And I don't think I want
I
to
don't mind going into.
delve
mind
into
going
the
into it.
negative aspects of education. The sort of.
Well, why
you know.
don't people? What turns people off? What makes a bad teacher? I think we can explore. I mean, I don't know. Like, what makes a bad teacher is they've got a hangover and they don't really know the material and they just have to do it because
It's a
they
job.
drew the short straw for this one.
Yeah.
Like, it's someone that's just doing it. They don't care really, and maybe they're not that smart. I don't know.
But can you imagine the energy that would be required all day, every day, to constantly be inspiring? That's really hard. You know, I did this course last term. I did it last year for a term as well, and I put loads and loads of energy in, and none of them did any work. But I got really good feedback, and she was like, "Oh, they loved you. You were so inspiring." I was like, "Yeah, maybe they enjoyed listening to me talking in an excited way about stuff." But I didn't really see any great projects come out of it. So I obviously didn't meet my objective to teach them something, so I've changed it this year. But again, just being enthusiastic for short periods of time, because that's what it takes, a lot of personal energy to be inspiring.
But can you not
all
just
day.
plant good seeds? You don't have to be like hands on the whole time, do you? Can you not just?
I really don't. I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think about my best teachers. I don't know. I'm trying to pick them off. I've had some good teachers. I know it's usually because the way they're talking about the thing shows that they care, and they care that you understand. But I've also had some funny teachers who've done things like, I had this maths teacher, and we used to have to do these worksheets. And as mentioned previously, thanks to my Yugoslav education, my algebra was pretty top notch, and I did this worksheet. She had it back. She goes, "Madam got 98%." I was like, "What the fuck have I done wrong? Just doing my worksheet. Fuck off." It's like, but it's that kind of like snidey, and I mean, you're not going to like every kid, are you?
Well, yeah, the teachers are people and they're human, and when you kind of think that there's the hierarchy, then it's hard to
There's this
understand.
My mum's a teacher, and she was teaching in a school further down the coast, and she used to teach German, and one of the French teachers confiscated a kid's mobile phone in class, and I think very amusingly changed the language of the phone to French before she returned it. The parents came in and complained that the teacher had done something. Some human rights were mentioned. God knows. It's like, oh, come on, that is funny. One of the reasons was like, should we be examining the negative aspects of? Maybe we should end on that high of imagine a future where everyone gets their perfect teacher. But politically, the cuts that schools are experiencing at the moment are phenomenal, and they're just like kids. To what end? I don't understand. To what end?
So
to
stupid.
what end?
Do you think there is that guy that we saw at Meaning that sort of said he thought there was a bit of a conspiracy to it?
Well, something's going. I mean, so I just don't understand the logic of not educating your own people and also preventing experts from immigrating. It's like, well, what the fuck? Who's going to do? What is the plan? Let's burn it.
It's like you want to be in power. Is it like? And surely it can only, if it was a conspiracy, then it can only be to preserve power, your own power. But like, how long? I mean, you're gonna die pretty soon. So then what? Like, what? It makes no sense.
No.
And over what? Like what?
It's like your power over a failing economy with no, it's just ridiculous. We go from we already export a lot of, I don't know. I don't understand it. And then this week I was reading this thing about the school dinners debate. So the Tories are trying to do something with the free school dinners, but they've protected Northern Ireland's kids because obviously they've got to pay the DUP back somehow. And it's like on what planet are we going to not feed hungry children? I just don't.
so fucked.
No fucking sense. I just don't. It's not that it doesn't make any sense. I mean, if you really hate the poor that much, then be completely blatant. Then fucking kill the, get rid of it all. Just go out and it's like it just doesn't sit well. It's like that thing about benefits. If you have more than 2 children, then you can fuck off. You don't get. It's like one of my friends said. So what if you got 4 children? Does each child get 1 shoe?
I just think we've got to sort of look at taking all of these kind of like taking all of the "are you eligible for this or that" out of the equation, haven't we? It's just got stupid.
Totally. It's like my thing it's not like having free school dinners is something that any child is going to celebrate. Woo, lucky me! I'm so poor that I get to go and stand in a different queue. I have secret, free school meals. But
look at this free gross bun I got. Amazing. Sorry. I used to get my free dinners, and I used to get my a bun and then go to the chip shop. So I'd give someone I don't know, I was up to some shenanigans. Yeah.
So you got, but it's like just give, because that was another. I was speaking to a friend of mine who I think she stopped being a teacher after a while because she couldn't handle it, and not in a negative, it's just too much for her. But she taught in a primary school where when the kids came in, the first thing they had to do was give them all toast, just to make sure they'd been fed. Because how on earth do you teach them anything if they're hungry? Like,
yeah, it's mad.
But it seemed like went very high pitched then.
You're going NHS description high pitched voice.
I was so incredulous that my voice has gone really high pitched. Anyway, it's just so You got to feed the kids and you got to educate them, and then everybody lives in a better society where children, and they're so quick to sort of go on about ASBOs and unsociable, where we're afraid of hoodies, and give them something nice to do at school, and then maybe they wouldn't be walking around looking menacing.
Absolute shithole where your teacher is just exhausted because they can't deal with the classrooms that are too big and aren't getting paid enough, and it's not difficult to see where the root of the problem is it?
No.
Prioritize education. We might fucking get somewhere. We might start getting somewhere.
If anyone's got any great ideas on how I should be educating my child, I've got about a year and a half to make a decision. So, chop.
Well, yeah, I'd be interested to see where you end up as well, because I think the only way is something weird, isn't it?
That's my theory.
I get sad when I hear about people start going to Catholic church because apparently the Catholic schools are so good. I'm like, well, that's depressing, because they believe in all sorts of rubbish as well, and they'll really be mentioning that. Although I was in a Catholic school and they had to talk about Buddhism and things and other things, and I always found that a bit incongruous though, because they were really into Catholicism, so it must have been like, well, it was like, well, I mean, if you're teaching us this, you can't be that serious about it, can you?
It's tricky. I've dismissed the idea of, I think on a technicality I could just about get away with declaring myself to be Catholic, and it did cross my mind. I was like, shall I? And I was like, I just can't. I can't be that much of a hypocrite. I could be hypocritical about flying on holiday and claiming to be worried about the climate, but going around and really pretending to be a devout Catholic in order to get my child into Catholic school.
So when it comes to actual measurable negative environmental impact, sure, you should be given a bit of leeway. But when it comes to your beliefs and reputation, absolutely not. But I mean, it just goes to show what's important, doesn't it? I'm totally with you. I totally agree. But I don't think anyone should.
This is what that thing that you said, that the only way forward is going to be something weird, and I do think that I was like, it's helpful to be a bit weird. If you've got to fight the machines who are going to be all about logic, if you can just go, I never thought of that, did you? Because I went to forest school and then Steiner. Woo, and I believe in fairies.
If you like the podcast, you can find us at grandpodcast.com, and you can email us with your school tips at hello@grandpodcast.com. Where can we find you, Ivanka?
I'm at Ivanka on Twitter, and I've written an actual blog post for Ivanka.blog. I just haven't published it yet.
Amazing. You can also find me at michaelforrestmusic.com and at michaelforrest on Twitter.
And what would be really helpful is if you would go to iTunes or Apple Podcasts, I believe it is now called, and give us some reviews and some stars, preferably 5 stars, because then the machine will promote us. With our wily creativity, we can beat the robots.
And tell your friends as well.
Yeah, tell everybody.
And tell us why, if you do like it, tell us why you like it.
That would be helpful. And if you think there's something we should do better,
don't tell us, because criticism is poison. According to the school I will be sending my child to.
Good one.
All right.
Yeah, that's it really.
Yeah, see you soon.
See you soon. Bye. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.